Hi, it's Kevin Lobates here, and today's video is about blockchain transactions, and specifically about Bitcoin blockchain transactions, because those ones are fascinating given the fact that they are subject to a certain number of limitations. They use a scripting language called Bitcoin script and a stack machine, which means that they aren't being run on a real computer, a Turing complete computer. They're being run on a kind of cut down version of a computer that has a limited amount of functionality. So it's kind of the difference between your phone and, say, a pocket calculator. The amount of stuff that you can do is restricted, but not as restricted as you would first think. And this is what I found particularly interesting looking at Bitcoin transactions, is they're all about asserting ownership over Bitcoins. And the weird thing is that the ownership of Bitcoins kind of hangs between the various owners through time, in that when I own some Bitcoin and I then send them on to you, you don't actually receive them. They sort of hang there in space. But the thing is that you now have a claim to them. And that's what we then say means that you own them. And it's only at a later date, when you want to spend them, that you then cash in that claim and create a new claim for somebody else, the person that you're sending them to. So unlike, for example, Ethereum, where balances are just written in plain numbers there's the effective equivalent of a table of owners and balances. In Bitcoin, there is no such owners and balances table. There are all these unspent transaction outputs, and that makes for a very different model of ownership, and one that it's quite difficult to initially understand. And as I said, the best way I can think of explaining it is that the ownership of Bitcoins kind of hangs there in the spaces between the owners, waiting to be claimed. And as soon as they're claimed, they're immediately shunted off into a space between the next two people. The new once was an owner, and then the new will be an owner. So it's a bit like writing checks and then putting them out there, and the recipient has to sign the check before they can cash the amount. And as soon as they cash it, they have to write another check to pass them on to the next person. And as a result, nobody's ever really sitting on their Bitcoin. They just have the potential to move them on to the next person. It's hard to explain, but it actually makes for not just a sort of philosophical or psychological difference. It actually has an impact on what you can do with them. And Bitcoin unspent transaction outputs have a surprising number of extra properties over just simple owner balances tables in what you can do with them. And at some point in the future, when I feel like I fully grasp them, maybe I'll have a go at explaining some of these interesting properties. In particular, I'm going to need to do some practical stuff, because I'm one of those people who I can read all the theory I like, but it's only when I actually get down and write some code and start doing stuff that I feel that I truly grasp what's going on. Anyway, that's it for today's video on Bitcoin unspent transaction outputs and transactions in general. Hope you found it interesting, and I'll see you in the next video soon. Bye for now.